Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 12th day of November. Got a great show with you for tonight. Rich Ferris will be in 30 minutes past the hour. I'm going to ask him about the Titans and what he thinks about one of the teams that didn't do much on the trade deadline, and get his take on Will Levis and whatnot, his growth in Tennessee. Now, they will be drafting number 3. Talk a little bit about these college quarterbacks as well. Maybe even get his take on Tennessee, Georgia, big game coming up on Saturday as well. Also, Shane Waldron has been fired now from the Bears. You just wonder what they're going to do now at head coach. Another bad outing by the Bears, losing, only putting 3 points on the New England Patriots. But first, let's take our first and only break, and we'll be back here momentarily. We'll hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows, giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
All righty then, folks. I know that sometimes those can be a little long. I do like to get in all of my commercials and everything in. Okay. So let's start off here in Chicago. Had to be a fall guy. I mean, the Bears, I want to say they've scored 27 points in 3 games. I mean, that is just unbelievable. But let's start from the top today. They fired Shane Waldron, who was an offensive coordinator working with Geno Smith, which his play personally, Geno Smith with the Seattle Seahawks, his play is the same as it was last year. Not sure if Waldron really made a big difference. Yeah, I've got this wrote down. 27 points in 3 games. A team like the Chiefs can put that up in one half, 3 against a rebuilding Pats team with the most, the most talented offensive personnel possibly ever. USA Today ran a report that Matt Eberflus may very well return in 25 as the head coach. I've read that before, folks, and I'll say this, that a lot of times that is being said during the regular season, and maybe that's the general manager putting that out there. And then it starts, you continue to lose and look bad even after moving off the offensive coordinator. And you look up and then the ownership has moved on and fired the head coach here. There's also been rumblings that they didn't want to pay up for Cliff Kingsbury, who is absolutely killing it right now with with this Commanders team and Jalen Daniels. So, system is a lot. That's why I say those offensive-minded head coaches here, you really have to have a good coaching in general in NFL and college. There's a reason why it pays the most. It's a big difference here from one coaching staff to another. I wouldn't really give up on Caleb Williams yet, but it's got to be frustrating for Bear fans knowing that Caleb Williams was the number 1 overall pick, and right now, you can look at the numbers, don't lie. He is falling behind Bo Nix. He is falling behind Jaden Daniels. And some would even say Drake May, who was highly sought after to be the one that could be the biggest project. We saw Drake May, saw his play here against Tennessee, made some good plays down the stretch, came up a little short there to get the Patriots into push Tennessee into overtime, but he gets the big win over Caleb Williams head-to-head. Drake May, remember, he didn't start this season like a Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix or even a Caleb Williams. He started after Brissett got injured, and then the team wasn't playing well. They went on and put him into the game. So he's the number 4 quarterback behind this class right now in some cases. And you look at, again, this is probably the best offensive personnel that I've ever seen with the Bears, that most of us have been following the Bears. Even going back to the 85 team, yeah, they had one of the greatest defenses, if not the greatest one-year defense of all time, the 85 Bears. I mean, you're talking Walter Payton. Yeah, he's the greatest running back of all time, arguably easily a top 5 running back. But you're getting guys like Jim McMahon, just not really I know there's a receiver there. And my friends from Tennessee with Willie Gault at receiver, but these guys aren't. I mean, you've got 2 Pro Bowl level receiver vets there. You've got a very high first-round draft pick in Rome Odunze there. You've got a extended Cole Kmet. He's going some games without a catch. Pro Bowl, very good tight end there. Very good running back there with Sweat there, DeAndre Sweat. Above average offensive line. Now, I know they've had some injuries as of late. But overall, this is just, and then well above average defense, considerably a good defense at times. And for them to play this bad, it really comes down on Eberflus. It really comes down to, does this ownership, do they want to buy out another contract and go ahead and bring in and bring in another coaching staff here. I've mentioned the other day, and I've been mentioning in the offseason about Lincoln Riley with USC. Now he's looking so bad at USC right now that name has cooled off as far as taking over and working with the Caleb Williams. Now you might there was some rumors that maybe Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions, which are red hot right now. He's been highly sought after for the past couple of years from other organizations. Would Ben Johnson be the guy? So that's something to keep an eye on. I wouldn't bank on Eberflus coming back. Maybe they give him another shot. This would be the third offensive coordinator in 3 years for the Chicago Bears. So you got to keep it at that. You got to look at it from that perspective. As far as offense and defensive guy, I wasn't a big fan of Dan Quinn getting that Commander's job, but hey, he went out and got Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury's probably not a head coach material type of coach. He's more of a coordinator, but they went on and paid the extra money. They got Kingsbury with the Dan Quinn, and now they look to be a pretty successful team now for years to come here with Jaden Daniels, as long as he can stay healthy. So I'm not saying Eberflus is already fired, but I'm sure the Bears fans are totally done. And I need to get John Restano back on the program as soon as I possibly can and see what he thinks about that. Okay. But as far as my concern, yeah, I would move off Eberflus. My take is move off Eberflus, maybe go after Ben Johnson, look around. If you have to go young offensive coordinator, or if you want to go defensive background coach, if you want to go Brian Flores, it's about the staff that you put around him as far as to being the offensive coordinator, somebody that can work with the Caleb Williams and be successful, per se. Pick off one of these other good, highly successful staffs here and build around them. Okay? I tell you what, I don't recall this much movement this early. It may be normal. Maybe I'm paying more attention to the NFL. I'm a little bit closer, and I follow all these sites on X, but on the X app. But I'm just not sure. You've got 2 head coaches already been fired. I mean, Doug Peterson is good as fired, but you're getting coordinators fired early now. And it's interesting about the patience and whatnot, or their lack of it with coaching staffs. But it's something to monitor, You would think with inflation the way it is, these owners would be a little bit more hesitant, but they're not, Even the how many head coaches we got fired? Yeah, we had Saleh and Dennis Allen so far, and I know Peterson's probably going to get fired. And Eberflus and McCarthy, they're right there. That's 4 right off the top that they can potentially be fired here in the next month or so once we start looking towards Black Monday, which is the first Monday in January after the regular season ends. Okay. All righty then. Don't want to waste too much time because I got Rich coming in 30 minutes past the hour. Let me give you my NFL Power 5. Last night, good win there. Speaking of coaches, Mike McDaniel was mentioned as one of those coaches on the hot seat from McDaniel. Yeah, McDaniel from the Miami Dolphins. Good win for the Dolphins. Didn't see that. Defense showed up. Rams secondary still a little suspect. I mentioned it last night. I actually picked Rams to win that game. And so mathematically, they're still in it. And they've got a pretty reasonable schedule here down there in Miami. As far as the Rams are concerned, they're one more game behind the 49ers and, of course, the Arizona Cardinals, who I talked about last night, who have surprised everybody. Hey, we're over halfway there, and they're in first place. We shall see how long this lasts. Let's go to the Power 5, okay? Philadelphia back in the saddle again. Listen, The defense is really coming together. Vic Fangio doing a really good job. They're second now in total yards, third in passing defense, fifth against the run. So that tells me that they're pretty good in every shape, form, or fashion here. With this Philadelphia defense, I mentioned the fact that I like their draft picks and what's that guy's name? Mitchell. And, of course, Cooper DeJean there, those two cornerbacks, and, of course, the younger players that they brought in the last few years for Howie Roseman, doing a really good job there down up there in Philadelphia. As long as Jalen Hurts can stay healthy and Nick Sirianni lets the coaches coach, as I predicted in the preseason, I can see them going on a long playoff run up there in Philadelphia. They're number 5 team in my Power 5. Bills, a little bit of a controversial one here, but as I mentioned, best start since 1993. Mentioned that yesterday, plus former All-Pro linebacker Matt Milano. Remember, he got hurt in training camp. His window to start practicing opens up this week. I don't think he's going to play in the big one this week, although it can really use him against that Chiefs team. He is opened up to come back. I do think he will be back, like John Restano said, probably December. Well, we're in the second week of November. Good news there. Bills, I do like this running game. They're plus 97 in point differential, third in total points, and they're like 4 games up in the East. I mean, they are running off with this thing in the AFC East. I mean, it's got to the point now where they can almost take the last week of the season off, take their own bye week, rest a lot of the starters, maybe play one possession there in the last week and go in and get their own bye week. I've seen teams do that before and play really well and you go ahead and go pretty far in the playoffs. They could potentially do that the way they're playing right now, this Bills team. I know Miami, I just mentioned Miami. Of course, those teams are mathematically in it. I got a feeling they're probably going to get beat again this week, and Kansas City is going to be 10-0. I haven't broke that game down. I got to check their injury reports for both teams. But that being said, I do like the way I like the 1-2 running backs here. I like the fact that the defense is playing better. They're keeping the opposition off the field. If with Ray Davis and James Cook, the defense won't have to do so much here. They're playing, and like I said, the least sack season there for Josh Allen in his tenure there, and one of the lowest interception seasons he's having. So you can make he's right there in the thick of thing for MVP this year, believe it or not there. So I got him at number 4. 8-2, best start since 1993. The Chargers, folks, at number 3, best defense points-wise in the NFL. Yeah, I said that correctly. The Chargers, 13.1 points per game, 6th in total yards, 2nd in turnover battle. Justin Herbert staying upright. This is a dark horse team to get into the Super Bowl this year. Remember, they had this Chiefs team down 10-0 with a flood of injuries. Both tackles were out that particular game. And Justin Herbert had an ankle sprain, and they almost beat the Chiefs anyway. So, as I mentioned weeks ago, this Charger team, folks, this LA Charger team is one of the only few teams that could knock out this Chiefs team on any given Sunday. So, got them at number 3. And, of course, number 2, Detroit, man. Best start since 1954. It was 56 last week. Now they've won another game, 8-1. Check this out for the Detroit Lion fans. The last 3 wins, 2 of them on the road against playoff-worthy teams. In other words, if the playoffs were to start today, folks, the teams they've beat, 2 of them on the road, Houston on Sunday, come back from 23-7. The Sunday before that at Green Bay. The Green Bay would be a wild card team if the playoffs started. And, of course, before that, Minnesota had the best record. They were tied for the best record in the NFL. They gave Minnesota their first loss. They were like 5-0 or something like that. Very, very impressive start to the season. And they've been playing through injuries. Their left tackle been out. They've had injuries on defense, and they just keep right on rolling. I mentioned before, top 5 in offense and defense. A lot of good balance, run-pass balance there. I know that the tackle being out this past week, that Jared Goff with those 5 interceptions, one of them was like a Hail Mary towards the end of the half, but still playing really well, though. Other than that game aside, playing with, and that was a game they came back and won. So easily to put Detroit at number 2. And, of course, number 1, Kansas City, perfect 9-0 start. 4th in total defense. A lot of those young guys that they got, McDuffie and Kalaskis, I guess is his name, the linebacker here, really playing well. Those guys have really got this team working out well on the defensive side, looking like they're not really missing L'Jarius Sneed, who's now a Tennessee Titan, which I thought they would. And, of course, Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins, I'm going to ask Rich Ferris about here. I'm going to ask him when he comes on here in just a few minutes, what does he think about that particular trade and DeAndre Hopkins, where he is simply balling out of control, more touchdowns in the, 2 games than 6 games with the Tennessee Titans there. But my point about Hopkins, he's helping get Xavier Worthy open here. I noticed that Worthy's getting more targets. So a lot of balance there at the running back. Of course, Kareem Hunt playing like a young player again. And I read today that the starter will be back there here in just a few more weeks at that running back position. So just a lot of good news there for the Chief fans. And, of course, a lot of the other fans are probably getting a little bit irritated with this team playing so well. Kind of remind you of the New England Patriot, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. My answer to that, just get better, man. Just get better. Be smarter, hire the right coach, get the right quarterback. If you don't have the right quarterback, go out and get the right quarterback. If you don't have the right coach, and you don't have the right coach, spend the money, go out and get the right coach. You get those 2 things squared away, you win. Look how, I know that Denver has lost 2 straight, but look how competitive Denver is with all their dead cap money, just because they've got Bo Nix paired with the right coach there in Sean Payton. So let's go over this one more time. Philadelphia at 5, Buffalo Bills at 4, the LA Chargers at 3, Detroit Lions at 2, and, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs at 1. And I know teams with honorable mention. I mentioned this last week. I like the Baltimore Ravens, but their defense, they give up a lot of big plays. If they were a 2-point conversion away from losing again, possible they didn't win, possible 2 losses to the Cincinnati Bengals. Lamar's really carrying that team. You can make an argument that he should win the MVP again, like Aaron Rodgers, winning back-to-back, So, of course, I got them as honorable mention. You got teams like the Commanders that fallen out of that top 5 because they lost again last week. The Steelers, I know that they're pretty close in honorable mention as well. If they beat, the winner of that game will break in. The winner of that game will break into this top 5 between the Steelers and the Ravens right now. So that's pretty much the top 5 in the nutshell. And I mentioned Denver before. Mike Wessoff, who's been on this program before, the special teams coach, has stepped down for health reasons. Mike, I hope he get the feeling better. He wrote the book Figure It Out. Was on this program a couple years ago. A really good special teams coach with the Denver Broncos. And on that note here, let me get to my Rich Ferris questions here. Rich is from 104.5 The Zone out of here in Nashville. They're the flagship for the Tennessee Titans. And Rich has got a lot of insight. And I do like Rich's opinion, not just his reporting. So let's bring Rich Ferris.
That's a sound effect.
Hey, the crowd loves you.
Wow, appreciate
You're the
that.
first guy I brought in with the applause, brother.
Awesome.
Hey, man, I was just talking just before you got on the program about Hopkins balling out of control with the Chiefs here. He's got 2 touchdowns in what was it, the second game? And that's more touchdowns than he had in 6 with Tennessee. What's your thoughts on that trade going back, since I haven't spoke to you since then?
So I've heard a few different things about that. I heard one that he was unhappy and that he orchestrated this trade on his own outside of the organization. Can't confirm that for sure. Some people have said, kind of behind the scenes, that when they signed Calvin Ridley, it kind of caused some friction there. He hurt his knee and went to California, wasn't here for a while, came back, and just I know he loves Nashville, but I think also he's looking at the end of his career and wants to go somewhere possibly to, get a Super Bowl because he hasn't been to one, and to, chase that championship. And what better team than the Kansas City Chiefs right now, who are still undefeated. But it kind of worked out on both sides. I mean, you kind of hate that for the Titans as a fan, because it's one of the best receivers of our generation, of the last 10 years. And but I think you look at it too as hey, this team, the Titans aren't doing so well this year. We had a chance of maybe getting some things together and having maybe a playoff run if they could snatch a wild card. Didn't think they were going to win the division. I've said that multiple times on this show.
Yes.
Figured that they may have gotten through all the kind of new nuances of this team, and maybe in the last half of the season gotten better and maybe push for a wild card. But that doesn't look like that's going to happen. So why not let him go to a contender and get a draft pick for that, and while the Titans are kind of going backwards and looking to have a pretty bad season for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and let me ask, what do you think about that compensation? The 5th could possibly turn to the 4th if they get the Super Bowl and all that. Do you think that maybe they should have bargained that? Rand should have bargained the Rand Carthon, the general manager, to maybe a 4 turn into a 3. What do you think about that compensation, man?
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell because, what if there wasn't any other compensation offered? Maybe that's what DeAndre Hopkins is at the moment. He's had a knee injury over since the summer, and hasn't really been, the dynamic player he used to be. Whether that's because he's here in Tennessee and who his quarterback is, but even in for the Chiefs, he balled out. Last week before last.
Yes.
Didn't really have a great game this past game. So it's not like he's where like a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson's is in their career at the moment. He's not at the height of his career. So maybe that to kind of determine the market on that, his age and like I said, he's kind of battled some knee injury, and so maybe that kind of determined the market. But as a Titans fan, now that he's gone, you do hope that still turns into a 4th-round pick, and hopefully into a star down the road.
Maybe they do get for the Titans' sake. Some of the critics would say, what about Jonathan Mingo going to Dallas on the deadline day? Because remember, Hopkins was traded, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago?
I believe that was maybe 2.5 weeks ago, because I know he played there the week before last. So it was probably about 2.5, almost 3 weeks now.
Yeah. So what do you think? Maybe they should have possibly waited to the deadline. Like I said, that Jonathan Mingo was traded to the Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. Now he's a much younger player. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
More potential.
And it's funny because now that you mentioned that, I mean, I haven't heard his name since the draft. So, and he's been in the league for 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
Interesting the Cowboys gave up that much for him, but yeah, I mean, they could have probably gotten DeAndre Hopkins for that, So to your point, I don't think the Titans were necessarily orchestrating that trade. I think it was more DeAndre Hopkins, and I think it was more of, hey, I want to go to Kansas City. I want to go to a contender. Dallas is obviously not looking like that anymore, or haven't really been that great all season, but it could have been, DeAndre only wanted to go to certain places, and Dallas would not have been one of those places.
Yeah. Also, I was thinking, I wonder if Rand Carthon kind of cut Brett Veach some slack, because I thought the Tennessee really did. I know he's been injured, but they got the better end of that L'Jarius Sneed deal for the 3rd round pick for a high-level cornerback. Maybe that was kind of like a little payback, wink, wink. Here's Hopkins here, because you kind of helped us out with L'Jarius Sneed type of deal. Do you think it's that, or you think maybe that's just what Hopkins was fetching at the time?
I think it was more on Hopkins' front and with his agent. I think at the moment you look at, Snead's been injured, missed the last 3 games or so. Right now the Chiefs are going to be winning that trade, too. So, I think it was more though D-Hop was kind of orchestrating that than anything.
Yeah, if he's going to make a lot of noise, go ahead and get him out of here. You know how these high-end receivers can be once they get frustrated. They get the diva term thrown at them. Carlos says Hopkins was not overvalued. Okay.
And I will say this about Hopkins' character: he's a top-notch pro. I mean, there was no, to my knowledge, of any
TO type of stuff,
bad locker room guy or anything like that. He's always been a super professional and always been great with media. And so I wouldn't want to say that on his character at all, because
okay. Are you surprised they didn't do anything else last week at the trade deadline?
I'm a little surprised that maybe somebody like an Arden Key or a Sebastian Joseph Day wasn't moved. It could have been just price. I know that they received calls about them and Jeffrey Simmons.
Yes.
I'm not surprised that Jeffrey Simmons was. Many teams called about him, and the Titans were adamant that they weren't going to trade him. And I don't think they should. I mean, that's one of your foundation pieces of this team. He's still fairly young, and I just don't. He's their leader on defense, so I just don't see them. I didn't see them parting ways with him this season.
Yeah. I told our audience this, that after the dust settles, once you get into the off season, exactly where this team drafts. I mean, you're trading teams, you're trading players to contenders. Well, contenders are going to keep winning games, and then that's going to be a lower draft pick, versus you do a deal in March, you know exactly where you're going to get come April. And maybe that's what Rand Carthon was thinking. I was a little upset that they didn't do more, but then I got to thinking, well, maybe you want to possibly wait till March and get potential better compensation, because Javondre Sweat's playing pretty well at defense. They could get probably first-round pick, don't you think, or multiple picks for Simmons, if that were ever to come between now and March. Wouldn't you think so?
I think multiple picks is definitely an option. I mean, he does have a fairly large contract. He was paid, I think, beginning of last season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't think he's the type that they're going to trade. I think they love him and want him to be a foundation piece for the next few years, and possibly beyond.
Yeah, and folks, I think Tennessee's one of the best passing yards, or not passing, overall yardage defenses in the NFL. Contrary to their 2-7 record, I mean, that's one thing. What are your thoughts about this 2-7 start overall, man? I'm pretty disappointed.
Yeah, I mean it's I thought they'd be a little bit better. I thought definitely on paper you looked at roster at the beginning of the season, you're like, man, this is a pretty good roster.
Yeah.
And going back to like I've been saying on the show is it just there's a lot of newness there that needs to get worked out and gets to clicking, and that just hasn't happened yet. I do think that there's a few holes that has shown itself since. Obviously, quarterback play has been one of them.
Yeah.
Right tackle position has been a big problem, and so and injuries hasn't helped the team. Some of those guys that they brought in have been hurt. Even somebody like a Jamal Adams, it just didn't work out. He asked for his release. They released him.
Yeah.
And so there's just been a lot of, on paper, a lot of good additions to start the year. But some of them just hasn't worked out for one reason or another. And I think another problem is just the team together and I think the scheme of the offense hasn't clicked yet. And so I think it's just a multiple amount of just things that haven't been able to get going when, you kind of hope that at this point in the season, that stuff's already in motion and starting to work into the Titans' favor. But as of right now, it doesn't seem that way.
Isn't it frustrating though, Rich, when you look at a team like and I'm going to have Mike Richmond. This is a guy. He's a writer. Got a lot of books about the Redskins, now Commanders. He's wrote about the former coaches and all that stuff. But they were similar to what the Titans were. They new coach, had all that money in salary cap, had pretty high draft picks, but they're up there. What were they? 7-2, 7-3. And then you look at the Titans, the flip side, it's got to be a little frustrating, don't it?
A little bit, but I think they got a much more talented quarterback too. I mean, that just, it starts there. It starts there. And so, but I think that Commanders team as a core have been there for a while too. I think their defense has been good for a while. They just needed some stuff on offense. They got a really good run. They got two really good running backs. One more on the later end of his career. One really good young running back. They have a dynamic receiver in Terry McLaurin. And so they've had pieces. They just never had really that quarterback that they really needed. And I think they also, had some additions of coaching that were very offensive minded and very. They have a GM. There's a lot of good change for them in their front office and their new coaching staff. And so it always works out when you land a very talented quarterback.
That is true. What's your thoughts on Levis, man, right now?
Well, it's interesting. It's very, it's very tough to really try to break down because you've seen his very first start. He looks like $1 million. He looks like a franchise quarterback. Yeah, he looks like a franchise quarterback. He has a 4-touchdown game, and even play the games after. He never really had a performance like that, but he had really good games and really wasn't making a ton of mistakes and was playing. You were seeing everything that you wanted out of him. You just knew that it's going to take some time with him.
Yeah. Now
it seems like he's almost regressed, and I don't know if it's because of coaching staff, new scheme, all that kind of stuff, if there's any distractions off the field or whatever. And then, of course, you have an injury that, but he's only played or started, 12 games? He hasn't, if that, so it's not like he's had a full rookie season, you know what I mean? He's had two full off seasons, but he has only started, 10 to 12 games. And so a part of me wants to give him at least 2 more games. And, maybe when I come back on here in a few weeks or so, then I can really have a better thing. Because the thing is there's some things with him that's undeniable. He has an arm. He has competitiveness. He works hard. I mean, he's got one of the best arms there is in a quarterback. But the problem is his pocket awareness can be a problem. Yes. Sometimes he tries to be too much of a gunslinger or make something out of nothing, and so that experience that he doesn't have is showing tremendously right now because he's just making plays or causing plays that even like this past week, he could have thrown the ball away a couple of times. He could have, stepped up in the pocket a certain way where he didn't get sacked. And so there was just he had a better game than he's had in his last two, but there's still a lot for him to work on. I'm not totally out on Will Levis yet, but I'm getting close.
I'm glad you mentioned Sunday because, 7 sacks, and you're watching the game like I am, man. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing the count in my head, Rich. I'm 1,000, 2 1,000, 3. Make a decision, make it a sack.
Yeah.
And the good part about that is, to you in the audience, that left side was holding up.
Oh, they got a thoroughbred stud of a left tackle. I mean, J.C. Latham has been awesome, and he's only going to get better as long as he stays healthy. They landed probably the best left tackle prospect in a while, in my opinion. And at first I wasn't sure because he was playing right tackle at Alabama.
Right.
But now that he's played and started every game this season, you just see him getting better and better, and it's not a problem at all in left tackle, where in the last 2 years it has been a problem for the Titans. The only issue is now right tackle is a tremendous problem, and it's not being solved, and it's causing a lot of sacks, and but the center to left is fairly good. Even Dylan Radins, who's playing right guard, has played okay this year. It's just that right tackle spot has been horrible.
Man, yeah, and so what if? Oh God! So,
but now, real quick, the 7 sacks. I mean, 4 of those sacks was Levis was blame on 4 of those 7 sacks. There was 2 that was strictly his fault. I mean, one of them he stepped up, went outside the pocket to the left, and completely got away from his protection and got sacked. That's on him.
Yes.
Another one was he just was running to the sideline, and instead of throwing it away, he took a sack and that's one of those bonehead things that you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so those type of things is what's hindering me from saying that, hey, he's looking better, he's progressing, but yeah, he's got a lot of awareness and decision making to learn, or if not, he's just not the guy anymore.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate. I wrote down some notes here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know Bo Nix is not all world, but he's getting rid of that ball pretty quickly.
Bo's playing pretty good right now. I mean, it helps when you have Sean Payton too, though.
Yeah, it just goes to show you when you get the right coach with that right system. And I was really high on Brian Callahan.
And that's the thing. I don't know. Like the jury's still out for him. It's only been his first 8 games or 9 games or whatever they are this season. So I mean he's still learning too. I think that he's got a lot of promise but you're not seeing it right now. And so it kind of makes you wonder. Like, all right, well here's this fresh new idea, offensive guru guy. Come in and it just really hasn't gelled yet. So, the jury's still out for him as well. I mean, I believe that he will be eventually, but, I had a conversation earlier today about like, well, maybe he's the type of coach that needs more of a veteran quarterback than developing a quarterback that he didn't draft, so.
That's true.
And it wasn't drafted for this system. This quarterback was drafted for a Mike Vrabel team and a different coaching staff, and was also, a lot of people don't probably know this, but that draft class which Ran Carthon did, it technically is his draft class, but it really isn't, because he came in I think about a month or so before that draft. They already had their draft board set for the Titans organization. The assistant GM that took over for John Robinson, because he was fired in December.
Yes,
and so they had that whole staff pretty much put together that draft. So that 2023 draft class was primarily a Mike Vrabel draft. So really this past draft, this 2024 draft, is your first true Ran Carthon with his scouts, with his guys, with his staff draft class. So going back to Will Levis, I don't even know if Will Levis was technically somebody that Ran Carthon, 100% wanted either. And then let alone, he couldn't predict the future of knowing that, hey, I'm going to have to find a quarterback for a different system, a different coach, and all that. So, there's a lot there to kind of try to digest and figure out. And so I think that this plan that the Titans are doing right now, and their sole plan on offense was for this year, and their main goal was to figure out, is Will Levis our guy? And if not, we're going to have, with this staff and the GM and our scouts, we're going to have to go find a quarterback.
What do you think that now, if the season ended today, they would have the number 3 pick overall? Do you see a quarterback in this class, if that decision does get made in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that maybe Will Levis isn't that guy? Do you see a Cam Ward or maybe a Schroeder Sanders fitting in up with Tennessee?
You know, this is probably the worst draft class for the Titans to go after a quarterback. But if you're looking at the top guys, I mean, Shadur Sanders, which is Deion Sanders' son, is a top prospect. Cam Ward from Miami is a top prospect.
Yeah.
I haven't really gotten to watch their game as much as I would like to yet. I know quite a bit about them, but I really want to take some time. You know, if I definitely will in the off season to know. I really like to look at film and go through that whole process. You know, I'm fortunate to be, work with guys that do that for, like a Coach Mack, Dave McGinnis, who used to coach in the league for 30, 40 years or 50 years. I mean, and so getting to learn a lot of, how to watch film and what to look at with him and Rep Brian of Titans Radio. I really kind of got a knack for that. And so I enjoy doing that in, the leading up to the draft. And so at some point I'll do that with quarterback, especially if we know that the Titans are in the market for that. But I also wouldn't rule out the Titans going after a veteran quarterback. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, Matthew Stafford as a veteran quarterback on the market this coming. Now he's signed, but he can opt out and become a free agent this coming off season. So somebody like him is intriguing, but I don't think that he would be a better addition as in like the Titans were when they grabbed Ryan Tannehill. I think Matthew Stafford's definitely on his last hurrah. So, it's just an interesting veteran quarterback that could be on the market next year too if Will Levis doesn't work out. Well,
I mean, what about a Kirk Cousins? What if Atlanta wants to go with Michael Penix this year? Yeah,
I mean, that'd be, I think, a very dumb decision for Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think that they invested a lot in Kirk Cousins.
Food for thought, though,
It's a very interesting, it is a food for thought thing, because if they did do that, my mind would be blown. But yet again, they drafted Michael Penix Jr. with 8th overall, 9th overall, with investing this much into Kirk Cousins. So, it always seems like every offseason and every draft just becomes bigger and more dramatic than the other. So if something like that were to happen, I mean, I'm sure there'll be plenty of teams calling or trying to get Kirk Cousins on their roster.
Yeah. Carlos says sell the pick. I don't know. I'm like you. I have watched some of these players, and I do think Schroeder has gotten a lot better from last year to this year. And Jalen Monroe, he's making big jumps, but I would like to see him come back a year and maybe come out. I do think Arch Manning's going to be a pretty highly sought after guy.
I don't know if Jalen Milroe is even eligible. Isn't he a sophomore or is he a junior?
I think he's a junior. I think he was a sophomore last year.
Okay. I thought he was, I thought he might have been a redshirt sophomore or something, but you might. Jalen Milroe is an interesting prospect. I mean, but if they're not in the market for a quarterback, I mean, you have that 2nd or 3rd overall pick, you got to take Travis Hunter if he's there. I mean, that's just one of the best prospects I've seen.
That is food for thought because if you're not really 100% so don't reach for a quarterback. Just take the best available player.
Yeah, 100%.
You could get a Hunter, right?
Yeah, that would be tremendous. I mean, if you could have him and a Calvin Ridley, I mean, that's two very dynamic wide receivers.
Yeah, and then they could still get their 3rd round pick back if they wanted to trade some of those deep. What do you think about this defense? I feel like they overrun plays too much, man. And they
I still think the defense is good. I think it's very solid. It's still lacking a dynamic pass rusher, which I think Harold Landry's great. Yeah. But he's kind of disappeared the last couple of games. Jeffrey Simmons has stepped up. He's been playing outstanding. The last 3 games, Arden Key stepped up. He's been borderline being that pass rusher that I just mentioned, but he's streaky too. So I think they've had some, obviously some injuries. Their safety, started safety Quandre Diggs is now out for the season.
Yeah.
Not having L'Jarius Sneed or Cheeto Awuzie, your starting 2 corners that was signed, that should have been your starting 2 corners, hasn't played much of the season. So, I mean, that's a big factor in all that. And I think they're still getting some solid work out of some guys. And then, I think their front 7 has been great, even though they've had injuries there too. Their middle linebacker, that's one trade we haven't mentioned. They did trade
Not Browning.
their middle linebacker. I can't think of his name at the moment. They drafted, or they traded him from the Rams and then traded him to Seattle.
I got a 4th-round pick for him.
Yeah, and he's good. So I mean, there's that too. You trade a pretty good guy that's a very good linebacker. Jones, I believe. I can't think of his first
I think
name.
it's Ernest Jones, the 4th.
Ernest Jones. Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
And so they traded him. So that's another piece, that they've lost, and so they've had to, rotate guys in and out of there. And I think they just and then they're just not winning. So I mean, that kind of drives down your momentum, drives down your confidence.
Yeah.
So I still think they're playing pretty solid, though.
Okay. Yeah. I can agree with that, man. I mean, the statistics say that. They do make some mistakes there. That special teams, I don't know.
Special teams have been a big time problem.
God,
Probably just as worse as the quarterback thing.
Yeah. It's just
Because they've allowed touchdowns, they've allowed gigantic field positioning, and that's put a lot of strength on the defense, as well as the offense turning over the ball and causing the defense's pressure, there too.
Yeah. I think he'll probably make some adjustments there. Hopefully he will, with his dad helping him out, Callahan, and properly make some adjustments there. On the college note, man, since I got you on here, I know you've been keeping up with the Vols here. What's your thoughts about that Georgia game coming up? So that's a big game, brother.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm going to drive down to Athens. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'll be there to see, probably an early playoff matchup. Maybe, it's a lot on the line for both teams there. I think if Georgia loses, they could be completely out of the playoff, and they haven't, they've been a contender for the last 4 or 5 years. So that would be huge. And for Tennessee, if they lose, it's going to be putting a lot of pressure on them to be a late playoff seed. So, yeah, we're getting an early playoff game there.
Wow, man, where'd you get those tickets from?
Oh, I'm going from the station, so I'll be credentialed to be there.
So you're going to be on the field?
Yeah.
Man, you ought to take some pictures.
I'll do that.
Yeah, you put them up on your, and I'll share them on mine. I did read today, I did hear today, that guy he's called the Bear. He used to be on College Game Day. Now he's with the Fox Group. He claims that he has sources that Nico, the quarterback, has a concussion and is not going to play. But I like that backup quarterback they had. What do you think about that hurting their chances, perhaps?
I do believe that it was a concussion. It hasn't been 100% confirmed, but a lot of sources are saying that, and have been telling us, some of our guests that are close to that situation on at the radio station have been telling us that. I haven't heard anything about his status. Obviously, if it is a concussion, there's certain protocols they have to go through. And if Nico isn't able to play, Gaston Moore is I don't know. I mean, he hasn't a lot of playing time. And the playing time he's had, there's nowhere near the talent of Nico, but they have a running game that they'll have to lean on with one of the best running backs in college with Dylan Sampson, and that defense they have is one of the best defensive, if not the best defense in college, that they'll have to lean on. And so I think if Nico's not available, then it's going to be a real dogfight, no pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. That's funny. Yeah, man. The way Tennessee turns the ball over, I don't know. It looks like that could. Georgia's going to be motivated after getting humiliated.
Oh yeah, they got to be because they're playoff stakes on the line.
Yeah, and Tennessee still has a shot. The 2 losses. I mean, everybody's got 2 losses, just about, except for what. Texas.
Yeah. I just I don't know because I mean the thing is does that get them into a SEC championship? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I mean, there's still a lot of other. I know there's a lot of other top teams that are playing. Like Indiana's playing Ohio State this weekend.
Oh wow! Nice.
Yeah. So I mean, something's got to give there too. Whether Indiana stays undefeated and maybe knocks Ohio State's chances of being in the playoffs out of there. So there's a lot. There's a lot happening this weekend. I think LSU ultimately got eliminated by getting destroyed by Alabama. And then somebody else lost. Oh, Miami lost. This past weekend too. So I mean, there's a lot on the line that happened last week, and there's a lot on the line this week. So and Tennessee, Georgia definitely headlining that, as well as Ohio State, and Indiana.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, Texas plays at A&M the weekend of Thanksgiving after.
Yeah, that's their rival game. So that's their last game of the regular season.
They lose that game to A&M.
Yeah, that's another one. There's still a lot of big matchups that determine they'll be a big factor in the playoffs. Yeah. And this is probably the most excited I've been about college football in a long time, and having this 12-team playoff has just ignited that.
Do you see an Oregon team staying undefeated?
I think they stay undefeated for the rest of their schedule. Yeah, I don't think they have anybody. In the big, I think they win that. I don't think anybody's in that conference is as good as they are.
I don't know. I think if Ohio State can get in, that was my preseason prediction that they'll meet Ohio State twice. They'll beat them up there in Eugene or whatever, and then Ohio State will get them at a neutral site game. If Ohio State gets in there and don't lose to Indiana,
if Ohio State beats Indiana, I think that's Ohio State Oregon in that championship, and
that's gonna be good.
And that's like you said, a rematch. They lost to them the last second, and by 1 point a few weeks ago. So I mean, I think that's a very possibility that could happen.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Okay, so you do Big Ten and Rich. Go ahead and plug the show, brother. I like those new graphics, man. Yeah, playing around with the Bears.
Yeah, it's kind of our logo or our guys thing. So Big Ten and Rich, Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock Central, where you get your podcast. Check it out. It's me and 2 of my friends. We just talk a little bit of everything, and obviously heavy into football and stuff right now. But check us out.
What was about the last week? I saw the title said something about eardrums.
Oh, some of our titles have nothing to do with the actual show. It's just something that's very random and that sticks out. And then once you hear it, then you'll know, like, oh, that's where they got the title from. And it's usually something extremely random that doesn't have anything to do with much.
Oh, okay. Okay. You didn't get in this hotly contested election? I try to stay away from my sports show, but I don't know. You guys got a random show.
No, we don't touch politics, really. I mean,
good, brother. Yeah.
None of us are really super into that anyway, so and it's just not something that we're wanting to debate and possibly split our, listener base or anything like that. I mean,
good answer, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, it's cut right down through families, man. And I'm so glad we could talk this and get escape from all that.
Definitely.
This up and down 3D. Oh, yeah, Carlos loves to play armchair general manager. Like myself, I love this stuff, man. And I feel like we're premature on it, but you can't help it if your team starts to lose. The local team, if you start to
I'll say this for that right there. I would just say that if to do that, you got to be sure about your quarterback situation, and you got to determine if that's worth missing out on Travis Hunter or not.
Yeah, that's true.
And if it's his, do it. They did that. What was that? John Robinson's first true draft where he, dealt the, number 2 overall pick, and ended up with Derrick Henry with one of those picks that he traded back from. And so, sometimes it works, and if you do something like that, it better work.
It didn't work with A.J. Brown, but it worked with that particular draft, brother.
The more that time goes on, that A.J. Brown just continues to haunt this team and is one of the worst things in franchise history, and it continues to make waves because, there's a lot of things that you wouldn't do if A.J. Brown was here, so it's
true.
That was a tremendous pivoting point in the Titans. When that happened, the Titans were no longer a contender after that.
Yeah, but a lot of times that is hit. It's hit with Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs, and I've seen it. I think the Bills are better for trading away. Who's it? Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs, yeah.
Yeah, so it's worked the other way, but if you miss on those picks,
and I don't think the Titans were set up to do that during that time either, with their cash strapped and just there was a lot of stuff that. I was talking with somebody today that whole situation was revolved around John Robinson really going all in for that 2020, 2021 playoff run because he knew that was their shot. And he went all in, but the problem was he forfeited the next 3 years for it, and he didn't get the result that was, you win a Super Bowl, it's all fine and dandy. Yeah. But when you don't, then that's why you're unemployed.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, brother. Appreciate you, Rich. Always,
no problem, man.
I'll bring you back, especially if something big happens between now and the end of the season.
Sounds good, man.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, everybody. I will be back tomorrow with my friend Nigel from Australia. We're going to talk about his music and his love for sports. I got a friend coming in from Australia tomorrow, 30 minutes past the hour. Thank you, Carlos, for contributing. I'll see you all tomorrow. Same time, same place, here on the Real Sports Scope.